Good evening, and welcome to the March 3rd, 2021 special board meeting of the Capistrano Unified School District. The meeting is now in session, and the time is now 5:05 p.m. Due to the nature of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-29-20, issued on March 13th, 2021, the board members have the option to attend the meeting and take action on any item telephonically. The boardroom is now open to the public. For the safety and well-being of others in attendance, all are required to wear a mask and social distancing practices are being followed. The public is also allowed to participate in this board meeting telephonically. Prior to this meeting, the district posted a link for you to call in if you wish to address the board on any agenda item this evening. Ms. Schmidt, please call roll.
Trustee Bronstein.
Here.
Trustee Bullicus.
Here.
Trustee Castellanos.
Here.
Trustee Davis.
Here.
Trustee Hanachek. Here. Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee McNicholas.
Here. Before the board recesses to closed session, is there anyone who would like to speak to a closed session agenda item? I see we have 3 speakers. Let's start with Christina Nalbach.
That speaker has not logged in this evening.
Okay. Scott Newell.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Scott, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I'm not sure if I'm at the right session or whatnot, and I apologize if I'm in the wrong section, but my name is Scott Newell. I have 2 kids that attend Capistrano Unified School Districts. I have not spoken to the board since 1991 when I was the ASB Vice President at Capo, and I used to come talk to you, the board members, so it's kind of been a privilege right now for me. But anyway, I own flag football leagues here in Aliso Viejo, and I rent my fields at Aliso Viejo Middle School. And I'm just trying to find some clarification on when I can start doing that again. You know, we haven't been able to get permits for about a year. So, and I've been with you guys for the district since for about 6 years now. So I'm just curious, and I apologize if I'm in the wrong session or whatnot, but I have not gotten any answers yet. So, sorry.
Scott, we're not able to answer that in this session, but we have your contact information and we'll follow up with you in regards to your questions. Thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Have a good evening. Now, Michelle Plossel Campbell.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board of Trustees. Tonight, I am speaking as a proud parent of 2 CUSD students and not in any other capacity. I was disappointed when February passed without the mention of Black History Month in any of my son's classes. I am sincerely hoping we can do better by encouraging our teachers to highlight contributions to our society by women during the month of March, Women's History Month. Specifically, looking at Juanita Hall, the first African-American woman to win a Tony Award, Rosa Parks in helping to integrate our schools, Mary McLeod Bethune, one of the most important Black educators, civil and women's rights leaders and government officials of the 20th century. When we look at teaching literature, we can look at Maya Angelou, Faith Ringgold, or we can look at Antonia Hernandez and her work on voting rights for the Latinx community. Josephine Baker for her work for our country during World War II. These are only a few examples of the women who have made great contributions to our country, and I hope our students can learn more about them and other women during this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And I did see some of those notable people on the CUC PTSA website, and I appreciate that. Thank you. The board will now recess to close session to address the following agenda items. A, public health emergency, consultation with agency counsel. B, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, 1 case. And C, public employment discipline, dismissal, release, 2 cases. We will now recess to close session. It is 5:10.
President Bullicus, you may now start the meeting.
Good evening and welcome to the March 3rd, 2021 special board meeting of the Capistrano Unified School District. The meeting is now in session and the time is 7:23 p.m. Mrs. Hayes, please call the roll.
Student Advisor Bashkar. I believe Student Advisor Bashkar will not be able to join us this evening, so I won't be calling her name every time for the record. Trustee Bronstein.
Here.
Trustee Bullicus.
Here.
Trustee Castellanos.
Here.
Trustee Davis. Here. Trustee Hanchek.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee McNicholas.
Here.
This evening, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Corey Veris, our electronic specialist.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
President Bullicus, before we adopt the agenda, can I make a request to reorder the agenda items? So just for some coherence and continuity for our work, if possible, I'd like to take kind of that one off, which is wonderful, CSBA at the end, move it to the end. Have discussion around the budget, item 2, to start the evening, and then go 2, 1, 4, and 3. So we kind of have some consistency in our discussions and our based around the budget, if that's possible.
And I'm sorry, in order of your request, again, is starting with
Yes,
2?
start it with the presentation of the budget, the second interim, which is item number 2, and then do 1 and 4, and then take the one that's kind of the one off, the CSBA voting, and put that at the end if possible.
So 1 is on consent, so the board would have to take it off consent.
Oh, wait, what?
I don't remember what is consent.
Which one's on consent?
Only the number 1. 2, 3, and 4 are discussion action items.
So we are starting the,
So if you're recommending to put 4 before 3, we could do that. Is the board in agreement?
I like her original order. Can I move to pull number 1 off consent and then take items 2, 1, 4, and 3? Is that okay?
2, 4, then 3, not 1.
2, 1, 4, 3. Item 2, item 1, item 4, and then item 3.
Oh, pulling off consent.
Pulling number 1 off consent, put it as a discussion item,
Okay.
and then reorder the agenda to be item 2, item 1, item 4, and item 3. And good luck with the people who've signed up to talk on those items to help them out, Ms. Hayes.
Okay, well, we can
Is
follow
that-
along with that.
Do I need a
we-
motion for that?
Okay, so
Okay, so I'm gonna move it, approval of the amended agenda order.
And I second. Thank you for that clarification, Martha.
Okay, so trustee McNicholas makes the motion and trustee Hanachek is seconding the motion. And
All those in
who agree-
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any trustees opposed? Showing none, motion carries 7-0.
Mrs. Hayes, could you please read out the report from the closed session?
On agenda item 3A, public health emergency, trustees tabled this item to March 17th. On agenda item 3B, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item 3C, public employee discipline dismissal release, C1, trustees gave direction to staff. On agenda item C2, trustees voted 7-0 to take action to notify the following certificated administrative employees they will be released and reassigned pursuant to Ed Code Section 44951, effective at the end of the 2020-2021 school year. and directed the superintendent or designee to send out appropriate legal notices identified by employees number 842-913-103-125-398-506, 876, 881, 426, 817, and 133. This concludes the report.
Sorry, having a little technicality problem. Can't use my. Okay, so we are going to then start with item number two, sorry. The certification of the 2021 second interim financial report. And I would like to recommend the board to recognize Clark Hampton, Deputy Superintendent, Business and Support Services, to present this item.
Thank you, President Bolicus, trustees. So I'd like to introduce Philippa Townsend, the Assistant Superintendent for Fiscal Services, to present this item. And then I'll have a follow-up item after she presents. Thank you.
Good evening. The last time we looked at the budget back in November, we were in a much worse place with a budget that was certified as qualified because the final state budget had eliminated the cost of living adjustments to district revenues for the current and future fiscal years. A qualified budget means a district may not meet its financial obligations for the current and future years. We also discussed the need to be cautious with staffing levels for 21-22 because revenue assumptions included the return of almost 1,500 students who had stayed away from school in the current year. Since that time, the governor released his budget proposal for 2021-22, which included cost of living adjustments for next year and for subsequent years. Because of this, the district can now certify its budget as positive with a second interim report. This is great news, but it's important to note that we are still deficit spending. The governor's budget proposal also included some one-time monies, but because we were waiting for further details on those monies, they are not included in this budget. The assumptions used in each year of the three-year projection are included here, along with a note about the primary risk to the projection, which is the possibility that the missing students may not return to the district next year. Many districts have seen the same trend with students as we have, where students have stayed away from school during the pandemic. And so even the district demographer, who gives us some projection trends to work from, predicts that they will return, but we cannot be certain. And given the risk, we must be prepared for a drop in revenue of up to $9 million if those students do not return next year. Next slide, please. This slide shows current deficit spending projections each year, with only the year 2021-22 showing a surplus. This assumption includes the return of the 1,500 students. Next slide, please. This slide shows the ending fund balance percentage for the current and next 3 years of the projection. Note that we are required to have a minimum fund balance of 2%. Next slide, please. We show this slide every once in a while just to demonstrate the impact that the pension payments that the district is obligated to make for employee pensions have on the budget. Rates were temporarily reduced for the 2021 and 21-22 fiscal years, but after that, they increased by 15%. Next slide, please. This slide, which we've shown you before, just shows what the 3 definitions are for certification of the budget. So we are certifying positive this year, this second interim budget. Last time we certified as qualified. Next slide, please. In reading the budget, the criteria and standards at the end of the document is a section to evaluate the data incorporated in the earlier pages. This requires us to explain any entry that is outside of expected parameters. Next slide, please. Before recommending approval of this budget with a positive certification, Clark Hampton will present an addendum with some additional information.
Thank you, Philippa. So the addendum has been posted on our website and trustees have been provided copies, and there's copies of the addendum at the back of the boardroom. And so while the PowerPoint is being brought up, as trustees know, later in item 4, we'll be discussing budget reductions. And also, you know that the state is holding districts harmless from ADA declines due to the COVID pandemic, and therefore school districts are being funded and were being funded on our ADA from 2019-20 for both the current year and next year, 2021-22, regardless of any decline we experience in ADA. And then in 22-23, we go back to being funded on our prior year ADA or current, whichever is higher. So I'd like to put this information into context when it comes to our multi-year projection that Ms. Townsend just presented. So with that, I'd like to have the PowerPoint brought up, the addendum. Should be coming up any time now. I could also present, if we're unable to get it, if I'm able to share my screen, I could present the PowerPoint as well.
Clark, why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
Okay, so could the host give me permission to share? Okay. All right, so let me start the. Okay, I trust everybody can now see the first page of the PowerPoint, second interim addendum.
Yes.
Okay, so now this slide is the last slide that Ms. Townsend presented, and it shows our multi-year projection showing the deficits that we're projecting in the future years. And to put the reductions that we're going to be discussing later tonight and the hold harmless into context. So as far as the reductions are concerned, if we don't make the reductions, then our deficit would just increase to be 15 million in 22-23 and 17.9 million in 23-24. And then, so that just gives that impact right there. So we need to try to right size our budget to reduce these deficits moving out into the future. When it comes to the hold harmless, you can see in this chart, we're held harmless in 2021. We're funded on 19-20 ADA, and we're funded on a 19-20 ADA this year. And then with the green bar, this is what's in our current multi-year projection, which shows the deficits. We have a sort of a cliff. It's an ADA cliff. Our revenue will decline because we'll then be funded on our actual ADA from the prior year or the current year, whichever is higher. And because we're a declining enrollment district, more than likely it would be on the prior year, which would be the P2 ADA from April of 2022. But one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that we declined a significant amount of students. And what we're projecting in Ms. Townsend's multi-year projection is that the enrollment comes back in the amount of 1,475 students return in the fall of this year. But if that doesn't happen and we were to stay in our with that reduction that we saw from COVID, then our deficits would be even larger. They would be 21 million and 24 million. And then this slide also includes the reductions that we're going to be discussing it later in the agenda. So that's just to put this into context, is that the hold harmless the state has provided school districts is a one-time benefit to sort of bridge the gap of the COVID pandemic downturn, and but doesn't take away the fact that we're declining enrollment and we're having projected deficits into the future. Of course, this can change based on whatever the state does and how the economy rebounds after the COVID pandemic. But for now, this is to help kind of put all of this into context as to why we're doing what we're doing. So that concludes my addendum, and I will now turn it back over to President Bolekis, and we recommend approval of the second interim report with positive certification. Thank you.
We do not have any speaker cards for this item this evening. Do any trustees have questions?
I have a question.
Trustee Hanachek?
Yes, thank you. So Clark, with the COVID monies, so we don't have any hard figures yet of what that looks like, right? We've got the Prop 98, the 2 billion, 4.6 billion, how it would be dispersed, right? And then I think there's an extra stipend which may not affect us, $1,000 for homeless students. And then when will we know, for example, if the Biden plan goes through, what that would mean to us? Because just kind of, I think with parents, we don't think in multi-year projections. We maybe think of next year, of what teacher I might get, what services, specialized services I could have. So this would be, because of these extraordinary times, I know we will roll out hopefully soon, it'd be very important how we will use that money in this gap time. Because even though we're showing the deficits to a parent right now who's suffering and wants their kid back connected, full blown, and what resources for the learning loss. So when can we expect to maybe have that type of conversation?
So right now we have estimates as far as this one-time benefit that we're looking to receive from the federal government and the state. So there's the federal stimulus money, there's the reopening or grant for schools to reopen to in-person learning, and then there's the extended school grant. It's also one-time money for catching students up who've had learning loss during the pandemic. So those are three pots of money. They're all one-time money. And once there's certainty as the amounts that school districts will receive, right now they're just estimates, and what the requirements are with spending the money and how long school districts get to spend that one-time money. We expect that to happen sometime at the May revision when the governor comes out with his May revise. Of course, in that intervening time, we're hearing more information from the legislature from their discussions about how this should look. So it's still not nailed down, and we'll expect to have more in May, but during this time, school districts will be working on how will we use the reopening money to continue with our reopening 2.0 for the fall for students. As many people know, Capistrano Unified has been open for in-person learning since September in some fashion. And then when we look at the catch-up money, we'll be planning that. And then when we know for sure how much money it is and how long we have to spend it, then we'll have a plan that will be brought to the board for approval.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to give a shout out to all of our ledge representatives and the superintendent and our especially our elected representative, Congressman Levin, who are listening closely and trying to advocate as much as possible so that we have some equity with the monies that are being dispersed. So thank you. And thank you, Philippa, so much. The two of you will make sure we'll never spend outside of our capacity. Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee McNicholas.
So the items you just mentioned, Clark, the federal stimulus money, the reopening grant, and the extended learning grant, those are not reflected in this report, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll move approval of the second interim report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that trustee Jones? Trustee Castellanos?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, so we will move to the resolution number 2021 through 35, non-re-election of temporary certificated employees.
Okay, let me
And-
check my volume. We're good? Thank you. All right, good evening, Superintendent Batal, President Bullicus, and trustees. This resolution is part of the annual process of releasing temporary contracts. These contracts are temporary because they fill behind employees on leave and employees funded through categorical funds. Based on the need to end the contracts annually and prepare for staffing, it is recommended that trustees approve resolution number 2021-35, non-re-election of temporary certificated employees. I'm available for questions.
Sorry, we do not have any blue cards on agenda item, which is now 2. Are there
This
any
is one.
questions?
I just have a clarifying question,
Yes.
Dr. Merwin. So obviously, this never fails to demoralize, right? This comes around so fast. It's like we know it's coming, and it's like the Ides of March, just the worst thing ever. So just as I remember, in the past, we've had huge spates of RIFs, pink slips, if you will. And then there is a point where, as I remember in the past, we would rescind, whether budget news, good news. Is that applicable to this swath of individuals that there are numbers here, but of course there are actual individuals behind this, that we would then, I believe it was sometimes in the summer or maybe after the May revise, that we would then rescind those, maybe Tim knows to help me, rescind those pink slips, because it was like for many years, I knew teachers that it was this, boom, 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 boom. And then finally, one of our best teachers, he finally couldn't take it anymore and went back to England. But so maybe you can just clarify what this could look like for some of these individuals?
Yes, I can help with that.
Thank you.
Over the last several years, we have met our goals of placing people into all known openings before we go into June. There's always a variable or two over the summer, but we've proven the ability to do that. So what would happen in this year, the temp contracts annually are terminated, which is different than item number 4 tonight. So the temporary contracts are behind people out on leave and categorical funds. And so we end those, we see who's coming back, look at the staffing variables, identify the openings. And then this year, what will weigh into that is people returning from leaves and then placement from the reduction in force list. And then temps. And sometimes those will overlap depending on the credentialing and the need of service. So this process here is done annually. And then we've just proven the commitment to get as many of these people back into open positions based on the openings that we identify in the staffing process. And those meetings start in April with each individual site, starting with secondary and then elementary.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to move resolution number 2021-35 for
So
the non-re-election of temporary certificated employees?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee McNicholas and seconded by trustee Jones.
This is a resolution, so I will call the roll. Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee Bullicus.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Davis. Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, so we are moving item number 4 to this position as 3, Resolution number 2021-34, preliminary resolution reduction or elimination of particular kinds of services performed by certificated employees. And if we could ask Tim Brooks, Associate Superintendent, to present this.
I apologize. Tim Brooks is just going to move his seat. That echo was from the mic that was above his head. So living and learning through technological issues.
Okay. How's the echo now? Are we okay? Okay. All right, thank you. So as started to explain in the last conversation, this resolution initiates the process for a proposed reduction of elimination of certain services performed by certificated employees, including CUEA and CUMA. That's our management association. CUSD, as Clark had outlined, continues to project a structural deficit, which is caused by the state's formula for public school funding. That said, staff is committed to return as many teachers to positions as soon as possible as our budgets and school programs become more clear. Once reopening 2.0 plans are developed and proposed to the board in the spring, staffing will then be finalized based upon the instructional programs approved. Again, CUSD will make every effort to retain our teachers for the positions available, as demonstrated over the last several years. We can use extended learning grant money to support this plan. Meanwhile, new education and support services leadership positions are being developed to provide support for all students in both general and special education to focus on our important work of cultural proficiency and social emotional support. While there will be fewer positions, these reimagined roles will focus on our most high leverage work, supporting our most critical priorities. Based on this information and the previous budget presentation, it is recommended trustees adopt resolution 2021-34 this evening.
We do have speakers on this item number 4 that is, again, for anyone who's confused, in position number 3 right now. The first speaker, Tiffany Lee. Do we have Tiffany?
Tiffany is no longer online.
Okay. How about Clay Sisman?
Yes, Clay.
Yes. Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you for guiding Capo Unified through these trying times. I know it's got to be very difficult. I'm really concerned with the amount of cuts that you're facing with this part of the board agenda. I'm not exactly sure of the exact number because I know some of the temporary teachers are replacing people who are out on leave. So I'm not sure what the final cut on district employees are. I applaud your efforts to try and fully fund counselors and hope that you're able to do that. And I appreciate your efforts at trying to reduce some of the district office positions. But I know from 39 years of experience in public school that layoffs are very difficult for the people involved. And as a former union rep and a department chair for 25 years, I know the layoff practices. I know the notification process that you talked about, the seniority system, the rights of temporary teachers, the various provisions for tiebreakers. But I think the central question always is, does the employee at hand directly interact with students on a daily basis? And I think that if the answer is yes, it's really incumbent to take a look at other places to cut. I know with hopefully the school coming back full force in the fall, the biggest, you're going to have a lot of issues. You've got ventilation in classrooms. You've got teachers who are probably going to have to continue to police PPE compliance into 2022. You've got them trying to do all of this while delivering quality instruction. And I think you're going to need your full existing complement of teachers and then some. I understand the demands of balancing the books and the California budget process. I've been through this quite a lot as a professional educator, but I think the ultimate goal of any district is to put teachers in safe classrooms so that they can help kids become better people. And I think a lot of these proposed cuts are taking a lot of teachers out of the classroom. So I urge you to take a look at these cuts and direct them so that they do not directly affect students in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. And Michelle Plossel Campbell.
Michelle, your line is live.
Thank you, Colleen. Good evening, Superintendent, Board of Trustees. Tonight I am speaking as a proud parent of two CUSD students and not in any other capacity. I am far from delighted, but rather sad to see that even with a positive budget as certified in Agenda Item 2 tonight, the board is still voting to issue, for lack of a better term, March 15th notices to 76 permanent, not temporary, teachers. I hear we are overstaffed for our current enrollment numbers and staffing at over 30 students per teacher. But at the same time, we have to address learning loss. Due to COVID-19 and the challenges faced this past year, we are only overstaffed if we want to accept some of the largest class sizes in the nation. We can best utilize these 76 highly trained teachers to help reduce class sizes, help our students overcome the loss of instructional hours this past year, help our students with their mental health. I also wish that the restructuring of the education and student support services was happening all within the same meeting as this agenda item. It would have prevented much of the confusion and concern that has happened over the last few days. As parents, we highly value the work of the coordinator of counseling and student support, as well as others in that department. And we know the value these jobs provide our students. The lack of clarity on who will now do that vital work is frustrating. I hope the March 17th meeting provides clarity to our community. As an education advocate, I work with you most of the time in the fight to make CUSD the best it can be. Not once have I delighted in or done anything to tear it down, but I will challenge you to make sure that from the district administration and the Board of Trustees, you do the same. To quote Ajima Olua, words matter. Words help us interpret our world and can be used to change the way we think and act. Words are always at the heart of all of our problems and the beginning of all of our solutions. So hopefully words are chosen carefully in the writing of future agendas so people interpret them as intended rather than sowing concern. I look forward to continuing to work with the school district to make CUSD the best possible educational source for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Joy Schnapper.
President Bullicus, Superintendent Vital-Brulte, and trustees. Over the past year, CUSD has been faced with many difficult decisions, but tonight the school board faces what may be the most difficult of all. CUEA is aware that the board intends to approve up to 80 certificated reductions in force for the 21-22 school year. You may or may not be aware that this number has been a moving target, and it has been steadily increasing since CUEA was informed that we were headed in this direction. At one time, it was as low as 30, and we are presently more than double that amount this evening. CUEA has repeatedly been told that CUSD is planning for the worst case scenario. Yet why are we the only ones in the county doing this? Despite enrollment being held harmless for next year, CUSD insists on moving forward with their worst case plan. This hold harmless clause will allow districts across the state to avoid drastic budget cuts and staff layoffs by using enrollment numbers from 1920 with the belief that enrollment will rebound in 21-22. Why is CUSD resorting to such drastic measures for the upcoming school year when it is the projections for the following year that may be problematic? Over this past year, we have continued to see that state funding far surpasses what was originally predicted. From CARES Act funding to the projected COLA, CUSD will receive more money than originally budgeted for, with 3.84% COLA next year and 2.98% in 22-23. Additionally, in the current proposed state budget, deferral payments for 21-22 will be paid down far earlier than expected. Despite all this good news, CUSD is releasing 103 temporary teachers and riffing 80, all in the name of worst case scenario, a scenario you know is most likely not going to happen. Let me share with you some more good news. First, Prop 98, from which CUSD gets the majority of its funding, will be at an all-time high. Second, the California state budget, 40% of which goes to schools via Prop 98, right now is being enriched daily from the taxes received due to strength of the S&P trades. Third, Congress is expected to pass and President Biden to sign by mid-March a federal relief package for COVID relief for schools in addition to federal aid for the state budget. Time and again, we see examples of how little CUSD values its employees, one of which just occurred at Oso Grande last evening. Teachers went to bed last night believing they would be working in unsafe conditions today outside of the CDPH guidelines and in violation of Article 5 in our contract, working in the freezing wind and pouring rain, all because the district didn't want to make the decision to cancel EXL. CUSD is choosing to play with people's lives, making them fear for their livelihood next year. I am perplexed and at a loss for words as to how a district can go about doing this to their employees when these are the people that make this district the success that it is. CUEA believes this is an overreaction. Do not vote to approve these RIFs. Instead, prove to CUSD employees once and for all that you value the incredible hard work they do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephanie Tarzia? Stephanie Tarzia?
Yes, good evening, Superintendent and Board of Trustees. As a parent of a second grade student, 7th grade and 8th grade students, I have continued concerns for the class sizes in our district. My middle school students were not able to enjoy the benefit of smaller class sizes in primary grades and have continued to hope that that would return as our budgets were looking to improve. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and now more than ever, we need our class sizes to stay lower. We are in definite need of our teachers, and due to all of the instructional loss that we've had due to COVID, our hours of instruction have decreased dramatically in order to meet the restrictions for the safety of our students and teachers. I understand that managing budgets are a challenge and there are tough decisions to be made to balance the district's budget, but we need our teachers. And I hope that we can find ways to manage our budgets without the loss of our staff, so that our students don't miss out on this needed instruction with all of the loss that they've had to endure due to COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our last caller, and we're open now to trustee discussion. Any comments?
I think my team wanted to clarify a couple things from speakers, so maybe Dr. Merwin.
Yes, I would like to clarify, we absolutely care for the health and safety of our employees, and all of the extended learning classes that are outdoors, that cannot be indoors, were canceled so that they would not have to be outside in the conditions. So we take that very seriously, and I want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, any questions on this resolution?
Me down
Trustee,
here.
Trustee Hanichek, I see you.
Thank you, President Bullockis. Looking through the plexiglass is like a wavy. I appreciate that. I just would like to take a moment. We received a high level of parents communication to us, and I would like to say that how much I appreciate your advocacy, if any of those folks are listening on this item. Your advocacy focused on students, student learning, and questioning what our process and plans are, and your voice matters, especially around these very tough decisions. This is hard, and it should be really recognized as hard. These notices represent real folks that we know. This is their profession, their livelihood. I do respect the superintendent's work around efficiencies and budget constraints, as well as the mandated March 15th notification. But I am disappointed that there was not some accompanying coherence or theory of action addendum to support these difficult decisions. These March 15th resolutions, although required, are destabilizing in the best of times, and occurring in these most unstable of times heightens the need for an understood strategic plan, always in the go forward. In the Orange County fire world, they often use the phrase, don't just do something, stand there. If this resolution moves forward, my expectations are that we truly take that pause to best understand the challenges we face and deploy the best strategy forward to utilize every penny in support of our students now, so that they can continue to build and move forward in their education. So again, my appreciation to the engagement from the community on this item.
I'd like to echo that. I really appreciate the engagement of those in the community because this is never taken lightly, ever. And CUSD values every teacher, every family, every child, every administrator, everyone that works hard to best educate our children. And we do that carefully, calculated, and in regard to each and every decision.
Do we have any questions? Do we have a motion?
Actually, let me just have a question too. I believe there will be clarity work around next steps. And when can we see that? Or when can the public see that? Because instead of this being a stop, I'm assuming we will be having a forward motion. When will this come back? When will we look at next steps in this reorganization?
So we are coming back with our reopening plans. Maybe Dr. Marwin, I know you've reviewed the timeline with the board. If you can review that again tonight. I know the teams have been meeting and that we want to make sure that as we are staffing, we're staffing against the budgets that just will be voted on tomorrow. So we want to make sure we're not spending money that actually is not real money in our district. So if you can review the timeline, when it will come back and what kind of, where the work's been so far, because we've been working on this for a while.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Trustee Hanachek, for asking that question. We will be coming to the board March 17th. When I say we, this is the reopening lead team, which will be me and CUEA President Joy Schnapper, CSE President Rhonda Whalen, Teamsters Sam Carlisle. We will be presenting together to the board regarding our reopening planning. We will be presenting an overview about the process, about the work that's been done already, and then we will be coming to the board in April with an initial proposal. We understand that this work is critical and that all the programming and all the staffing will be obviously connected to the plan that the board approves. So we are well underway. We have work groups, which are called action labs, that are working on all the different topics for the reopening plan, and we're well underway. We look forward to sharing about the process and kind of a status report March 17th, and then we will be back with an initial proposal April 21st.
I have a question just because I'm a new trustee. Would it be at that time that we'd know that we'll be able to hire some of those teachers back? Or is it normally in summer or late summer when we know that the teachers that have been riffed that we can bring some of them back? What does that
Yeah, I
usually
can
look
comment
like?
on the timing of that. So in traditional years, we've done, I'd say 98% of the rehiring before we went into June, and the 2% were just some of the variables that you can't predict as you go into summer. People leave over the summer. We leave ourselves a little tiny cushion, but you know, the theme has been the work that can be done will be done. So we filled positions before we headed into summer. Depending on what the programs that are developed, that could be a little different this year, but that's been our commitment for the last 7 years.
Trustee McNicholas?
A couple of things. I know a lot of the communication we got was around counseling, and especially during the pandemic, you know, we were all feeling that stress, parents as well as students. And from what I understand, we are not cutting back on counselors at all, and that we're supporting an increased number of on-site counselors and a focus on social emotional support. The reorganization may have, you know, different titles or different names, but we are not cutting back on counseling services at all. And before you answer that, I also want to, in a shout out to all the parents and people we've heard from, I think there is a commitment to do a better job in explaining board reports so that the public doesn't get overly concerned. I mean, we as board members kind of get a lot of background information, but we have to realize that we are serving the public too. So I appreciate the commitment of the executive staff on doing a better job at that. And now you can answer my question on counseling.
Yes, thank you, Trustee McNicholas. Very proud to say our strong commitment to counselors remains. There are absolutely no reductions in counseling, and we are actually moving forward with plans to get to a 1 counselor to 425 student ratio. And we will be sharing more about a timeline on that in the spring. But we are increasing counselors, not reducing in any way, and we're very much committed to their importance and their work.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question, Trustee McNicholas, and for the clarification. Are there any other clarifying questions at this time?
I will move approval of resolution 2021-34.
Moved by Trustee McNicholas. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Jones. Ms. Hayes, please call the roll.
Trustee Bronstein.
Aye.
Trustee Bullockis.
Aye.
Trustee Castellanos.
Aye.
Trustee Davis. Trustee Hanachek.
Aye.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee McNicholas.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
The last order of business this evening is the 2021 ballot for CSBA, the California State Board Association Delegate Assembly. We have the opportunity to place votes, and I would like to recognize Martha McNicholas to present this item.
Well, I think I have been a delegate on CSBA, a representative from Capistrano Unified for, I think, 6 years now, and I've had the pleasure of both Trustee Jones and Trustee Bullockis serving with me. It's really an odd situation for those of you not familiar with CSBA. As a large school district, we get to appoint our own delegates. We get 2 delegates to that assembly. Smaller districts, though, don't have that. They have to be elected by others in Orange County to represent their own district. I know it's a little odd, but that's where this comes from. So if you're wondering, why are we voting on somebody from Newport Mesa? That's where this comes from. The members, incumbent members on the list, I think both Trustee Bullockis and Trustee Jones have worked with and feel like they're definitely qualified and should stay. Our knowledge of the other incumbents is limited, although Gila knows everybody, so she always, I always value her opinion. So I think our recommendation is to support the 7 incumbents plus Diana Hill from Los Alamitos and Arturo Montes from Centralia Elementary School District. And if you have any questions that we can answer, be glad to discuss it.
Are there any questions on the candidates that we're putting before the board to recommend?
Gila, do you have some information on them?
Well, this was really primarily Trustee Bullockis and Trustee McNicholas's work, and they sort of passed it by me, particularly for the non-incumbents, and I gave some opinions on those. And I support the recommendation that the other two trustees have made.
I second that. Is that your motion?
I guess it was a motion, yeah.
Oh,
I
I
mean, I was
second.
asked.
I second that.
So moved by Trustee Jones and seconded by Trustee Hanachek.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0.
Ms. Hayes, could I ask that you submit that voting result to the CSBA? Okay.
Yes, our staff will submit the ballot by the March 15th deadline to CSBA.
Thank you.
And thank you both to Trustee McNicholas and for the assistance, Trustee Jones, in this to present before the board. There being no further business before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, motion moved by
Whoever wants it.
trustee Bronstein and a second by trustee Davis.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, motion carries 7-0. The time is now 8:11 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.